What does it take to get a pipeline approved by this Prime Minister? Does it have to be a Brookfield pipeline?
We're going to give them the same. He won't.
They're doing it. They are doing it. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives exposing Mark Carney for who he is, the Brookfield Party of Canada. Mark Carney gets humiliated so badly by Pierre Poilievre, he stops speaking once again. He sends all his goons to shield for him, has a laugh in his chair with zero regard to Canadians. Midway through the session, he once again storms out because he's had enough. Let's jump into this.
The Prime Minister was elected promising, quote, to negotiate a win with the U.S. American tariffs on autos, aluminum, and steel have doubled, and on Canadian lumber, they've tripled. Not a single American tariff has been reduced since he promised he would reduce them. And now he says, who cares?
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I care about the 3,000 auto workers that I met on the picket line in Brampton who are out of a job. I care about the 8 mills that have closed because the Prime Minister failed to deliver a deal. The workers on those lines, they care. Canadians care. Why doesn't the Prime Minister care?
Mr. Speaker, since I became Prime Minister, Canada has secured...
You notice right away, Duper's delight. He gets a cheeky little smile here. See, you can see that smile right there. This guy gets the duper's delight. He likes that he's duping Canada. This guy is squeezing us like a lemon and he's enjoying it.
Since I became Prime Minister, Canada has secured the lowest tariffs of any country in the world. On 85% of our goods, the tariffs are zero. Yes, Mr. Speaker.
I'm sorry, what? So I had to go back and listen to that again because I swear he said, since I became Prime Minister.
Since I became Prime Minister, Canada has secured the lowest tariffs of any country in the world.
That is a blatant lie. Chrystia Freeland did the current NAFTA deal, the CUSMA agreement, not Mark Carney. That was in place before he became Prime Minister, well before. CUSMA was negotiated and signed by Chrystia Freeland in 2018. It replaced NAFTA in 2020. Mark Carney had nothing to do with this. This needs to be called out on mainstream media. They need to bring this up. He can't just keep lying like this. I'll be adding this to the Carney lie tracker. He's trying to defuse this bomb here and lying straight to Canadians in the House of Commons is the only way he's trying to do that.
On 85% of our goods, the tariffs are zero. Yes, Mr. Speaker. There are sectors, the auto sector, the steel sector, the lumber sector, the aluminum sector, that are under pressure. We care. We're acting in those sectors. There will be announcements this week to further support.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Before the election, he promised elbows up. After, it was who cares?
Yeah.
Before the election, he said the tariffs were an existential crisis. Now he says they're not a burning issue. Before the election, he promised to negotiate a win. After, he backed down to American tariffs, and those tariffs have now doubled on Canadian aluminum, autos, and steel, and tripled on Canadian lumber. Before the election, he promised the fastest growing economy in the G7. After, he delivered the fastest shrinking economy. Why is the Prime Minister before the election so much different than the one after?
Yeah.
The right.
Mr. Speaker, on the night of the election, when I had the great honor from my constituents of being elected as a deputy of this House, unlike some others in the chamber today, I made a promise to Canadians. When I
This is a nasty man. Like, he's a really nasty human being.
make a mistake, I'll admit it. That was a poor choice of words about a serious issue. And the serious issue is what progress are we making structurally? Look, best deal in the world, strongest budget in the world, and the most new trade deals.
The most new trade deals, the strongest budget in the world. He just makes up anything and everything. This guy's wild. How does he talk about poor choice of words? Insulting Pierre Poilievre. This is a nasty human being. Before we jump back to Pierre, we've got this blowing up in the circuit. I brought this up on the channel about 2 days ago. Nutrien, this company here out of Saskatchewan, is now going to be shipping potash through Washington. Table Salt drew this picture here. So down through Montana and Washington to the coast, instead of going through Alberta, and then Vancouver, because dealing with David Eby and government regulations is such a pain in the butt, it's easier just to work with America. Nutrien Limited has chosen Washington State over BC for a $1 billion potash export terminal, citing over 30 reasons, totally bypassing BC in the supply chain. David Eby is a complete loser. He is bankrupting the province of British Columbia. He legalized street candy, and now we have needles everywhere. He's just as bad as Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau. This is also being posted on the Globe and Mail here. Nutrien's U.S. investment is Carney's critical failure, supply chain experts and industry says.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister did make a mistake. He's made many mistakes. In fact, it's been nothing but mistakes when it's come to trade. Look at it. This Prime Minister promised that he would negotiate a win on softwood lumber. Now he says, who cares? Well, conservatives cared. Within 80 days of the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, taking office, he managed to eliminate American tariffs on softwood lumber and get refunds of them. This Prime Minister has now had 8 months, and those tariffs have now more than tripled. Prime Minister asks, who cares? I can tell you, on behalf of all the MPs on this side, we care about the jobs that are being lost in Lumbertown. Why doesn't he?
Mr. Speaker, this government cares about creating jobs in this country. That's why we proposed a budget before this House that catalyzes $1 trillion of investment over 5 years. The member opposite and his colleagues, those who could make it into the room, voted against that budget, voted against Canadian workers, voted against Canada's future. We believe in this country, Mr. Speaker, and we are building it.
Here, here.
Well, Chinese, American, Indian, and other tariffs have only gone up since the Prime Minister began his 28-trip journey around the world. He hasn't had a single solitary win. In fact, the only wins he's had are for Brookfield. Just days after he met with the president, Trump signed on to $80 billion of nuclear purchases from Brookfield. And then he gave $500 million of our tax money to the European Space Agency located on Brookfield's campus. Why is it that whenever he spends his time and our money, Canadians end up poor and he and Brookfield end up richer?
That one's news to me. Pierre is correct here. So I did show this one a few days ago. $500 million of our tax dollars be sent to the European Space Agency when we have nurses sleeping in cars. But as Pierre mentioned, Brookfield buys Harwell Science and Innovation Campus. And well, as we see right on the Harwell up here website, the European Space Agency is Europe's gateway to space. Its mission is to da-da-da-da-da. Essentially, Carney just gave $500 million to a agency being housed in a Brookfield company.
Mr. Speaker, not for the first time, the Leader of the Opposition needs to check his numbers.
That's right.
The government of Indonesia is reducing tariffs on 95% of Canadian goods.
Wow.
Canada has the best deal with the United States. 85% of our goods are tariff-free.
Wow.
So let's go back to Indonesia. Here we can see our global trade, 77% to America. Well, where's Indonesia? It's this box right here. 0.3% of our exports go to Indonesia, and that's what he's bragging about. It's clear which country you need to get a deal with here, Carney. Even a huge deal with China wouldn't move the needle. It's America. We have to have an American deal.
The United Arab Emirates is just confirmed that they want to invest $70 billion in this country.
Wow.
They believe in Canada's future. Why don't the members up?
Right, and he arrived just a few days after Brookfield's CEO lining up with the same interests that are not Canadian interests, Mr. Speaker. Speaking of Canadian interests, this Prime Minister opposed the pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific, just like his Liberal predecessor blocked that same pipeline. On Thursday, he'll make one of his grand announcements, waving around a meaningless so-called memorandum of understanding. If it's anything other than a public relations ploy, why won't he say on what date will construction begin on a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific?
Here, here.
Yeah, so Pierre doesn't buy that there's going to be a pipeline, and I don't think there's one either. I think this is just stringing things along to seem like something's going to happen there. Unfortunately for Carney, this is going to hurt his own base, not only with his caucus, but with his voters, because a lot of far leftists will be like, I don't want to be supporting a pipeline, and they'll go back to the NDP. And you're seeing caucus revolt happening within his own party right now. This article just came out in the Toronto Sun saying Melanie Joly eyes Paris ambassador role for Carney as Carney plans major cabinet overhaul. Carney doesn't want her in there. He's shuffling over over to probably where she wants to be over in Paris. It goes on to say if Jolie does leave, and sources say it will happen within weeks, not months, she will join Chrystia Freeland, who's going over to the UK for that new Rhodes Trust job, Bill Blair and Jonathan Wilkinson in departing. Blair is reportedly in line to become Canada's High Commissioner in London. Wilkinson is looking for ambassadorship to the European Union in Brussels, and Freeland has been named the next warden of Rhodes House and CEO of Rhodes Trust. I think Mark Carney sees a lot of these people as damaged goods from the Trudeau years, and he wants to get rid of them because they're tainted. They have that brand image, and that's why I don't have a star on Melanie Jolie, because I didn't suspect she'd be sticking around, or she's not in the inner circle by any means. But Chrystia Freeland is, because, well, Mark Carney is the godfather to her son. So there's a different plan going on here, especially with her being Ukraine envoy. We're seeing a shuffle happen here, and maybe Carney knew this was going to happen, and that's why they've been attacking Pierre so badly over the last few weeks, especially over the d'Entremont situation, to try to ease the blow that's coming. Because this is going to be bad media for Carney if he has multiple people leaving.
Mr. Speaker, sometimes the question reveals everything. The memorandum of understanding that we're negotiating with Alberta creates necessary conditions, but not sufficient conditions, because we believe in cooperative federalism. We believe the government of British Columbia has to agree. We believe that First Nations right holders in this country have to agree and support. All stakeholders have to back. That's one Canada.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister apparently hasn't read our Constitution, which indicates that the federal government alone has jurisdiction over pipelines that cross borders. Let me quote 9210. Federal jurisdiction applies to works and undertakings that connect one province to another or extend beyond provincial limits. In other words, it is exclusively the federal government's decision on whether to approve a pipeline. It was this federal government that blocked the last pipeline. So can he confirm, once and for all, is he deciding unilaterally to give veto to NDP BC Premier to block a project that Canada needs?
The honourable government.
Mr. Speaker, last week he talked about that big, long, giant pipeline of hot air that animated the country for...
Speaking of hot air, Stephen McKinnon here, you can see Carney having a laugh down here. This is all a joke to him. He won't even stand up to defend himself. He couldn't be bothered. So they send this windbag.
10 years during the government of which that member was a member. Not a single milliliter of oil reached Tidewater under the Harper era. In a Liberal government, oil exports have increased. Oil exports to Tidewater, thanks to the purchase of the Trans Mountain Pipeline, have increased. Canada is a conventional and a renewable energy superpower, and that will continue.
Mr. Speaker, it really is embarrassing that a Prime Minister who claimed that he was the man with the plan cannot even stand up and debate me about pipelines on the floor of the House of Commons.
He's weak.
He's afraid.
He's weak.
The previous Conservative government approved a pipeline to Tidewaters, the Northern Gateway Pipeline, which the Liberals then defeated and destroyed, giving massive power to the Americans to monopolize our oil. Will the Prime Minister, who promised to act with unimaginable speed 8 months ago, finally stand up for Canadian workers and confirm that he will approve a pipe to the top?
Mr. Speaker,
Wow, Pierre calling him out here. Look at this.
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, our government fully understands the ultimate jurisdiction for interprovincial pipelines rests with the federal government. At the same time, our government has been clear that a proponent for a major project, for it to be designated, we expect it to work with the impacted jurisdictions and with First Nations. Mr. Speaker, they don't understand that. The Premier of Alberta understands that. They want to work with us.
And look where our country's gone. Down the toilet. America's cleaning our clock. We have companies leaving in droves, and they're going to give veto power to David Eby.
Mr. Speaker, it really is pathetic that the Prime Minister cannot stand in his place and defend his position. He's afraid to defend the fact that on Thursday, he will not sign on to a new pipeline. He will sign on to a public relations stunt while planning to hide behind the Premier of BC and abdicating his unique constitutional responsibilities. If he wanted a pipeline, if he no longer believed in the keep it in the ground extremist ideology that he supported for 10 years, then he would stand up today and say that he will approve a pipe to the Pacific. Will he?
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition doesn't seem to understand how to get a pipeline built. The Premier of Alberta does, is working with this government to build Canada strong, Mr. Speaker.
You know what? This sounds like extortion, like you have to pay ransom to get something done. They're doing everything possible to hurt our country and enrich themselves. It's disgusting and deplorable.
The question was for the Prime Minister. He's here in Ottawa today. He has the ability to stand up and state his position. He claimed that he was going to act with unimaginable speed. Here we are, 8 months later, and he refuses to state whether he even supports a new oil pipeline or whether he'd like to continue to pump that oil at discounts to the United States of America while Canadians pay the price. What does it take to get a pipeline approved by this Prime Minister? Does it have to be a Brookfield pipeline?
What Pierre needs to do here is bring up the 91% investments in America and take away his power. That's what they did to Pierre. They took away the carbon tax as the big talking point. They took away his power. He's got to do the same thing because they keep attacking Pierre, being this MAGA light, Donald Trump Jr., whatever all these things they say, and tie Carney to America. Show his investments 91%, take that power away because that's what's going on here. It's in Carney's best financial interest to have American oil and gas boom because he has many investments down there tied to it.
Speaker, natural resources projects, interprovincial resource projects, there are indeed a great deal of those. The federal government has a unique role and must ensure that our obligations to First Nations, our obligations to other provinces, to communities, to consulting are present and those conditions are met, and then we are able to proceed. The Leader of the Opposition, now that he's standing right there, may want to stand up and say, what part of that process would he not respect, Mr. Speaker?
I don't respect the idea of standing in the way of Canadian energy workers and giving our oil to the Americans at a discount. What we would do is get the government out of the way and get the project built. The Prime Minister has the unique constitutional opportunity to do that. Section 9210 of the BNA Act makes it exclusively a federal decision. This Prime Minister is hiding under his desk rather than answering the question. 8 months after promising that he would take unprecedented action with unimaginable speed, he's done nothing. Why doesn't he get out of the way?
This is embarrassing. Carney is still sitting here and McKinnon and Tim Hodgson running shield for him. He's afraid of debating Pierre Poilievre.
Nonsense. We have dozens of major projects in play and under study, and we are building the country at unimaginable speed. We are creating opportunities for energy workers, for young people, for housing, for steel, lumber.
They're not even bringing in an equal amount of projects for the companies leaving Canada for America or going bankrupt. One of our biggest copper producers. We had Stellantis, cuts to ConocoPhillips. It's just endless. They're not building Canada strong. They're making Canada broke.
Aluminum and autos in this country. That is what we are doing. What is shocking is that the Leader of the Opposition stands in his place and somehow pretends in his whole fake way that he's going to override and steamroll the rights of Canadians that have a right to have a say in these projects. We're going to give them a say. He won't.
Oh, the Prime Minister hides under his desk. He puts up his House Leader to rant and rave and pump his fists in the air. This Prime Minister said that we faced an existential crisis requiring that we act with unimaginable speed. And here we are 8 months later, and he doesn't even have the courage to tell Canadians whether he supports a pipeline that would allow us to go around the American monopoly of our energy and get our product to the world. So when he finally stand up for workers, stand up in this House and answer the question, a pipeline or a pipe dream?
He won't stand up. He's terrified.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of ranting and raving, I asked the Leader of the Opposition yesterday,
this is all a joke to Mark Carney. This cowardly loser won't even stand up and defend his position. This guy's supposed to be a leader? He's an absolute loser. This guy is a grifter banker that's ripping us off. That's all he's here to do. He's not here to debate. This is all a joke to these guys. I was looking into Tim Hodgson's situation for his investments. Because it's in a controlled RRSP, he doesn't have to disclose it. If it was self-controlled, he would have to. What these guys do is they move their stocks over to a money manager and say, hey, make sure it's in these stocks. They step away and then suddenly it's controlled. That way they don't have to disclose it. These guys are all rats.
Significant things were said by members of his caucus last week. Number one, the member for Calgary Midnapore suggested the Prime Minister was disloyal to Canada. Secondly, the member for Northern Rockies repeated mega claims that immigrants were the cause of economic slowdown in Canada. He should stand in his place right now and apologize for those comments. Take those members to task and do something for them.
This guy is the most theatrical Trudeau alumni out of all of them. So proud of you. Like, it's all garbage. If you look when he sits down, he's always having a chuckle and a smile about it, because this is all theatrics to him.
Mr. Speaker, it's not us that question the loyalty of the Prime Minister. He's the one that is blocking a pipeline that would allow Canada to become energy independent, to reach markets outside of Canada, while he and his company invest in pipelines in the Middle East and in Latin America. He's the one that forces Canadians to spend more on taxes than on food, clothing, and shelter combined, while he stashes his cash in a Bermuda tax haven above a bicycle shop. So if he wants to say that he's Canada first, why doesn't he stand up in this House and start acting like it?
Building Trades Union, the Canadian Labour Congress.
He's too busy checking his shares to see how much they've gone up.
So I think Carney left, and one of the Conservatives said he's too busy checking his shares to see if they've gone up. This is wild.